Okay, moving on. So this is actually a pretty controversial topic. And once again, this is a topic that came about while I was surfing news articles and surfing social media.
Okay.
And it's the question of should fentanyl be legalized? So
That's silly.
it sounds crazy, right? Doesn't it sound crazy?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not as crazy as you might think. I actually got this I was on Twitter and I saw a tweet by this guy named Dr. Ryan Marino. And I don't know him personally, but I have talked to him through social media. And he's an expert in toxicology and addiction medicine.
Okay.
And he's kind of a big deal in his field. Like I've seen his name on like news articles and more than one. And he's always talking about fentanyl. And he does a lot of like harm reduction policy. Are you guys familiar with that term, harm reduction policy?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so so one way you would go about drug policy is say, okay, we're going to punish everyone that uses drugs or has drugs or deals in drugs, and it's just going to be harsh penalties, and that's how we're going to stop this problem. Harm reduction policy is more about protecting people and not necessarily punishing them because they use drugs, but educating them and making it safe to avoid bad outcomes.
Okay.
And it's pretty popular. I mean, it does have its people who are not as for it. There's people more hardline, say, oh, we need to make everything illegal and harsh penalties.
Okay.
And then there's other people who are like, well, we just need to protect people. And I can get behind that. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to protect the populace. And so anyway, Dr. Marino's really into harm reduction. It's just mostly minimizing the risk and improving the overall health of the population. So anyway, he threw up a tweet the other day, and I actually copied it and pasted it. And he was talking about a fentanyl drug bust and how this person was complaining about the black market. And you can't see the bottom of it. And what he said was that if you don't like the black market, well, you can basically eliminate a black market by legalizing and regulating. And he used THC or marijuana as an example. And I don't think that he's advocating for, we need to legalize fentanyl, but it's not the first time that I've heard people talk about this.
But like, how would you legalize fentanyl? Like, what would it be used for legally?
Like the same way marijuana was legalized recreationally. I mean, there's a big push to legalize a lot of drugs. I mean, maybe not in Texas, but I mean, I know in the Pacific Northwest they've pushed to legalize like psychedelic drugs. I mean, they're strictly used for recreation.
Okay, and that's what it would be legalized for?
Yeah, potentially, yes. I mean, there are a lot of like European countries where I don't know if it's necessarily legalized, but it's like where heroin's decriminalized. And so the thought process behind this is that if you legalize and you regulate something, you make it safer and less people will die. Because as you know, or as you may or may not remember, when we were talking about fentanyl deaths, every year, at least in the past couple of years, you're talking over 70,000 deaths in the United States from fentanyl.
Yeah.
And some of that does come from the black market, not to mention, prosecution, crime, and all that. And so, although it sounds crazy, I mean, you have to stop and say, is what we're doing working? Is what we're doing working? I mean, not really. I mean, illegal fentanyl is, pouring into the country.
Yep.
People are dying. And so, is there a better way to protect the populace? And I'm not saying I'm for this, but I will say that like I was for the legalization of marijuana. I mean, you think about the things that are legal right now. Do you guys know how many people die every year from cigarettes?
Yeah, and alcoholism?
Yeah, it's 500,000 every year, 500,000 roughly from cigarettes, and 100,000 from alcohol. Yeah. Like right there, you have two drugs that kill way more people than fentanyl.
And they tried to outlaw alcohol before, and they saw all of these gangs develop
like
from
prohibition was like an enormous failure. I mean, the prohibition of marijuana was an enormous failure. It still was everywhere, except now you're putting people in jail and criminalizing people for something they're going to do anyway.
Well, as a Texan, you can just go to Oklahoma and it'll be okay.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't really follow all that stuff, but I was looking the other day at how many states have legalized. Like it's insane. Like it's almost all of them. And you don't hear about it.
I think almost all this. I think most. I don't know how many states, but it seems like most of the states that surround Texas.
Yeah.
Have.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I just kind of noticed that the other day. And so when you're talking about like this, like the legalization of something, I mean, the common questions pop up of, would this increase use, right? I mean, because that's one thing you have to consider, especially with something like fentanyl that has a high addiction potential.
That and the fact that you can overdose on it literally by the size of your fingernail.
Right, and so I always throw up that last infographic I have there. Yeah, so this is basically the opioid potencies. And I list them out: morphine, which is commonly used in the hospitals for pain control; heroin, which obviously is a legal drug; fentanyl, and then the fentanyl derivatives, and the lethal dose. And of course, there's a little bit of variability in that based on purity and all of this. But so you're talking like 2 milligrams of IV fentanyl. Yeah, that is enough to kill you. But what you get like on the street might be completely different. But yeah, you bring up some great points when you start talking about something like fentanyl. Is one, what is the addiction potential, and what is the potential for death? And you're right, like it's not like alcohol where you have to consume an entire bottle of liquor to kill yourself. I mean, it takes
a lot to overdose on alcohol.
And so you wonder, is this something that's even feasible? I don't know. I mean, I think it would probably not work out. I agree. I think it would probably end up being something we regretted. But on the other hand, to play devil's advocate,
the people that want to get fentanyl are going to get fentanyl.
They're going to get it no matter what. And if you make it safe, you potentially could save lives. I mean, so it is crazy when you say it like out loud, like, hey, maybe we should legalize and regulate fentanyl. But obviously what we're doing is not working. And so, you have to kind of decide as a society, like, are you going to be somewhere like Singapore where...
Is fentanyl still used for medical purposes?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's used all the time for medical purposes.
Okay.
And the fentanyl that's used in the hospital and what you get on the streets is completely different.
Right.
For the most part. I mean, it's the same...
I would hope so.
It's the same chemical, but like, obviously they use fentanyl citrate in the hospital.
It's like doctors going in the back alleys. I need some more fentanyl.
Yeah, we got to do some more surgeries. But no, I think that, when you have a problem like the opioid crisis in America, I mean, you have to kind of have some self-reflection of, hey, is what we're doing working? And I think that the answer is no. I mean, this problem's gotten infinitely worse in the past, decade, not better.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, what's the ultimate goal of healthcare providers or policymakers? Is to protect the public. And it is questionable of whether or not what we're doing is protecting. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, okay, well, do we need to be more strict or less? I mean, you can make an argument for both. I mean, because if you're going to say what's happening now is not working, well, if you're going to go one direction or the other, right? You're either going to make it harsher or make it more lenient. I mean, there are people out there, and I don't know if Dr. Marino actually is for this. I tried to message him to see if he would say something about it.
Well, it's like, if fentanyl gets legalized, then it's like cocaine would be legalized.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of people that...
I feel like that's how fentanyl got into America, or got into where it is so addictive, because that's what it was mixed with or something. That's what I've read.
Well, you hear that people are mixing it, and the police are reporting that, but I think now it's just like pure fentanyl for the most part. I mean, people, it's a big thing on the streets, and it's coming in from all over the place, and you never know, what you're getting. I mean, it's why the black market's so unsafe.
Right.
I mean, there is a lot of data to show that the legalization of marijuana actually made it safer. It made it more potent, but it has made it safer.
Yeah, that it's not laced with something.
And it's regulated. Mm-hmm. There's not the cartels that are, all the crime associated with like bringing it to the country and selling it and buying it and all that. And so I think almost everybody except the most strict anti-drug people would say actually legalizing marijuana was actually probably a good thing. It generated revenue for the states. I mean, most people would say that. As the drugs get more dangerous, you're going to get less and less people that would say that. It's like, okay, well, if marijuana is legal, should mushrooms be legal? Well, I mean, that one probably fine, but cocaine, well, I mean, I look at everything as like, how addictive is it and how dangerous.
Cocaine was legal one time, right?
It was, yeah, early on, it was, yeah, absolutely. Heroin, I think, was legal early on as well. I'm pretty sure. I think in the teens that it was. I don't think it was used the way it's used now, though.
Yeah.
It was like mixed with stuff. I mean, it wasn't kind of used in the same way.
Yeah, because didn't a lot of founding fathers have their little these little
The little
things,
vials
and they
of
like
it
would
that-
like just like
Yeah.
stick it up their nose. Yeah.
Probably. I don't know. But it's an interesting topic. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with fentanyl. I mean, honestly, the way our government works, probably nothing will happen. Like, probably things will just kind of,
Yeah.
kick the can down the road and hope it gets better. But it's an interesting thought process, and I think things have definitely changed over the last 20 years. I mean, the whole thought of trying to push abstinence has kind of gone out the window, I think, for the most part. And you're seeing more harm reductions, which I do think is a good thing. I personally wouldn't want to live in a place like Singapore where the government puts you to death for for a victimless crime. I mean, that's not the side I would want to live in personally. But
No.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Hopefully,
Me
someone
either.
much smarter.
That's
than,
why we aren't politicians.
I know, but I think it's good to talk about it.
It is.
It's an interesting topic, and it's something that's you hear about daily, and I don't know what the solution is. So it's a tough problem. Travis, what's the solution, man? You got it?
Don't do drugs. That's the solution.
Just say no.
Just say be above the influence.
Just say no. I mean, obviously that'd be the best thing for
Right.
everyone for sure. But realistically, I'm not sure the human race can do it.
Yeah, I ain't got the answer, Sway.
Yeah.